Here on Wham Baam Dashcam, we've shown you over 1,000 dashcam videos sent in by our fans, and we serve up 20 new ones every week. Today we're showcasing some of the craziest clips we've ever featured, so buckle up for Wham Baam Dashcam's Worst Drivers of Georgia, Volume 1. This submitter was driving through an intersection when he watched the Toyota Corolla in front of him get T-boned by a Nissan driver running a red light. Our submitter stopped and gave a copy of his dashcam video to the Toyota driver for their insurance claim and police report. He told us he hopes this footage will inspire people to be more aware of traffic signals. Jeffrey watched a red Mustang sideswipe a white Nissan Leaf, starting a chain reaction that would ultimately involve Jeffrey's Ram 2500 as well. Jeffrey told us that every southbound lane of the highway was shut down by first responders until the wreckage could be cleaned up. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured in the collision. Gabriel watched a driver in Georgia shoot the gap, and their two vehicles came within inches of colliding. We don't know why people try this. If you can't see who's coming, wait until you can. Shooting blindly into the street is never safe. Steven was headed down a highway express lane when he watched a car lose a wheel, which bounced across the highway and nearly struck his Ford Focus. Thankfully, Steven avoided colliding with the tire before swerving around it, and he told us nobody was immediately behind him. He didn't stop, but he told us the car that lost the tire was able to safely pull over. This submitter was on his way to watch a game with friends when he suddenly noticed a silver SUV flying up behind him. The SUV driver lost control on the wet road surface, barely avoiding a collision with the guardrail before straightening back out and continuing to speed down the highway. Our submitter says, "Get some good tires, people." I'm not sure if the tires were the issue here, or if this close call was caused by excessive speed. Jared was taking his girlfriend to work when traffic suddenly slowed down. He'd left himself plenty of room to slow down, but the driver behind him hadn't. Watch what happened when he suddenly changed lanes. The driver of the Hyundai didn't realize a semi was driving in the neighboring lane and clipped the front of it, sending them into a spin. Thankfully, they managed to regain control and pull over to the shoulder. Jared continued so his girlfriend Selena wouldn't be late for work, but he sent along a shout out for her after telling her for months that it would only be a matter of time before he had a video to send us. Robin watched the driver of a black Ford pull out in front of a work truck, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes.
What are you doing?
Robin told us the lady driving the Ford floored it and kept going, leaving the driver of the work truck to collect himself before they both continued. Here comes another red light runner about to learn an expensive lesson. Jeff watched a hatchback fly through a red light and get clipped by an oncoming Subaru before sliding sideways and hitting a Jeep facing the other way. Jeff told us police and firefighters responded. Thankfully, there were no injuries. Jeff also said he bought his dashcam right after we started the Wham Baam Dashcam channel. If you need a dashcam, check the link in the description for the brand our team uses in our own cars. Zach watched a silver SUV make a legal right on red up at the intersection ahead, but then the driver of a utility truck pulling a trailer also made a right on red without stopping or waiting for traffic to clear. Zach slammed on his brakes and narrowly avoided colliding with the trailer. Remember what we said last week? It's not the responsibility of other drivers to make room for you. Don't force others to slow down or stop. Fox was driving his Ford Fusion when he watched another driver run a stop sign right in front of a sheriff's deputy. I bet you can guess what happened next. Party lights, instant justice, you get the drill. We're guessing that driver, on the other hand, got a ticket. Whoopsie. The trucker who sent us this video was waiting for a green light before turning because he had a heavy load and couldn't accelerate very quickly. It seems that another trucker couldn't wait and decided to cut in front of him. Hey! The other truck's trailer clipped the corner of our submitter's Freightliner, removing a headlight and part of the front bumper. The other truck sustained a deflated tire, and both drivers immediately pulled over. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, and the two truckers were able to laugh it off with no hard feelings after settling the issue with the police and their insurance providers. Maharshi and 3 of his cousins were headed to his sister's house for dinner when they suddenly watched another driver lose control and come spinning down the road directly toward them. Maharshi's cousin Smit dodged the spinning car, whose driver was evidently running from the cops after shutting down a nearby intersection by doing donuts. Incredibly, nobody was hit by the out-of-control sedan. Maharshi said that investing in a dashcam is worth it. You never know when you'll need it, and you'll never regret having one. Roy was driving north down a Georgia highway when he watched a Tesla get sideswiped by a Nissan pickup truck. Along with both involved drivers, Roy pulled over on the shoulder. He quickly gave his contact info to the Tesla driver and asked them to reach out for the footage before leaving to get to an appointment on time. The Tesla driver never did contact him, but maybe his own Tesla cam footage was sufficient to prove what had happened. Roy told us the side view mirror had been broken off the Tesla and there was damage to the right side. Andrew was headed to a store when he approached a roundabout notorious for collisions and close calls. As he approached it, he was surprised that it seemed to be empty, but it wouldn't be for long. The driver of a black SUV was in a lane that bypasses the roundabout to turn right, but instead, she started driving across the white stripes to go into the roundabout, nearly hitting Andrew. She didn't stop until Andrew blared the horn, and he told us she looked at him as if he had done something wrong. Personally, I think that's the worst part. She probably still thinks what she was doing was completely safe and legal. Andrew turned into a parking lot before texting his partner, "We finally have something for Wham Bam." He said they usually end their day by watching Wham Bam videos together. Aww. Richard encountered the driver of a blue car who seemed to be a bit confused about the rules of the road. After turning into the oncoming lane by mistake, the other driver hit the juice pedal and moved into the correct lane. Thankfully, they were far enough away from any oncoming traffic to avoid a collision. Dito was headed to Kroger for some fruit. As he turned through a gap in traffic, he was surprised when a driver coming down a turn-only lane crossed solid white lines to continue straight and run into Dito's Lexus. You can't really see it in the dashcam video, so here's a better view of the road markings the other driver ignored. Cops responded and cited the other driver, but Dito is still waiting for his insurance provider to get back to him. Noah was driving his F-350 to work when an SUV came barreling down the road, crossing well into Noah's lane. Noah estimates his own speed at 40 miles per hour and the other driver's at over 60. He said the SUV left skid marks when the driver slammed on the brakes to avoid a collision, and they were still there when he went home from work. Noah told us he loves our videos, but he'd hoped never to be making a submission. At least it was just a close call and not an accident. Luke was driving home from work when he noticed another driver on her phone as she drove past him in the other lane. A little further down the road, a truck was broken down, partially blocking the lane. Somehow, the other driver failed to notice the truck's flashing lights until it was too late to avoid a collision. Even though she hit the brakes, the SUV slid into the back of the pickup. Luke stopped and called 911. Amazingly, even though the SUV driver admitted to being on her phone, the police gave the pickup driver a ticket for impeding traffic. Luke gave him a copy of his dashcam video so he could fight it in court. Thankfully, the pickup only sustained minor damage, but the SUV was totaled by the impact. This submitter was on his way home after getting gas when he noticed traffic slowing down. In his impatience, he made what he admits was a stupid decision to use the center turn lane to reach his upcoming left turn lane. Without warning, a minivan emerged from between other cars, nearly hitting our submitter head-on. Both drivers skidded to a stop before the minivan driver continued, waving apologetically. Our submitter told us he was only a teenager back then, and his driving has improved a lot since then. He hopes this video will teach others to be patient while driving and not to make unsafe turns across traffic. Austin was headed to the mall with his friends Dallas and Leo. When their protected left turn arrow turned green, an oncoming driver ran their red light and cut in front of Austin. Austin slammed the brakes and honked while the other driver kept on going. Amazingly, if we freeze the footage, we can confirm what Austin told us he saw. The other driver was holding her phone when she ran the red light. I could be wrong, but it also looks like there's a baby carrier in the back seat. I wonder if she's on her way to the annual Parenting Awards show. Victor was driving his Toyota Tundra, following his mom's Honda CR-V loaded with relatives. As the intersection ahead of them cleared, they finally had an opportunity to turn just as the light turned yellow.
Daddy. Oh.
Before the other light turned green, a driver on the right hit the gas before plowing into the side of the CR-V. Victor told us the driver denied that she'd run a red light, but she also wouldn't call the cops as she didn't have a license. Victor called them instead, then waited for them as the driver's male friend, perhaps her boyfriend, arrived. Victor let the cops talk to them first, and he told us the driver started looking at the sky when asked for her license. Now it was Victor's turn. He told the officer he had dashcam footage, and when the cop watched it from inside Victor's truck, he immediately found the other driver responsible. He ended up citing her for operating without a license, running a red light, and causing a collision. Victor told us they're still dealing with the insurance provider, but they're going to demand the CR-V be repaired by Honda. Virginia was driving along in her Ford Bronco when the driver of a Mazda in a left turn lane changed his mind and suddenly cut back into the straight lanes. Thankfully, Virginia was able to swerve and brake while honking, avoiding a collision with the meandering Mazda. She told us the driver had 2 kids in the vehicle with him and he never acknowledged his mistake. Rebecca was getting ready to turn left to get onto a Georgia highway when the Dodge Camaro in front of her began rolling backward. Even though she honked, the driver didn't get their foot on the brake in time. Sorry, did I say Dodge Camaro? Obviously I meant Chevy Mustang. Not like it matters, since they're both basically just a reskin of the Ford Charger. Anyway, there wasn't any damage to either vehicle, so both drivers continued on their way. I must admit, it's refreshing to see the full skill of manual transmission drivers on display. Sean's stepdad was test driving Sean's mom's Jeep Cherokee while trying to diagnose a transmission problem. Without warning, an oncoming driver crossed double yellow lines and veered into his lane. Thankfully, he was able to swerve to the shoulder and avoid a head-on collision. Sean asked us to shout out his stepdad Mike as well as his mother Bobby. They watch all of the Wham Bam channels together as a family. Jared was headed to the airport when he watched a dump truck cut across multiple lanes to avoid taking a highway exit. Suddenly, a semi-driver began merging onto the road from the shoulder, but watch what happened next. Jared merged left to go around the slow-moving semi, but the trucker continued across his lane, forcing him to a stop as the truck crossed the gore point to get back on the highway. Jared told us he was nearly rear-ended as well.
Wham! Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.